You ever notice how everything around you looks rich but makes you feel poor? Walk into any coffee shop in America today, and you'll see granite countertops, brushed steel espresso machines, Edison bulbs hanging from reclaimed wood beams. The menu is printed on thick cardstock. The barista has a carefully groomed beard and a sleeve tattoo. The whole place screams money. And yet, the coffee tastes like burnt water. The chair you're sitting in wobbles. That beautiful wooden table has a veneer so thin you can see the particle board underneath when you look at the edge. You paid $7 for this experience, and somewhere deep in your gut, you know you've been had. This isn't an accident. This is the economy we live in now. The veneer economy. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. It's everywhere. It's in the luxury apartment building with the marble lobby and the walls so thin you can hear your neighbor's phone conversations. It's in the car with the leather seats that started peeling after 6 months. It's in the designer handbag that costs $800 but was stitched together in a factory for $11. It's the restaurant with the exposed brick and the small plates that leave you hungry. It's the furniture that looks like it belongs in a Swedish palace but collapses if you sit on it wrong. Everything looks expensive, everything feels cheap, and there's a reason for that. A reason that goes back further than you think. A reason that was engineered, deliberately, by people who understood exactly what they were doing. We're going to follow that thread tonight, back through the decades, back to the moment when American capitalism made a choice between quality and the appearance of quality, between substance and surface, between the real thing and the photograph of the real thing. And that choice, made in boardrooms and factories 60 years ago, is why you're sitting in your apartment right now surrounded by things that looked great online but feel hollow in your hands. Let me take you back to a world that doesn't exist anymore. 1935, middle of the Great Depression. A man walks into a furniture store in Philadelphia. Not a rich man. A factory worker. Makes maybe $1,200 a year. He's there to buy a dining table. The salesman shows him a table made of solid oak. It's heavy. You can feel the weight of the wood. The joints are dovetailed, hand-fitted by a craftsman who learned his trade as an apprentice. The finish is hand-rubbed oil, applied in 7 coats over 2 weeks. The salesman tells him, "This table will last 50 years. Probably longer. It'll survive his kids, maybe his grandkids." The man buys the table, takes it home. It costs him 2 weeks' wages. A fortune. But he knows what he's getting. He knows it's real. Now flash forward. Same city. Same kind of man. Adjust for inflation and he makes about the same relative income. He walks into a furniture store in 2015. He's looking for a dining table. The salesman shows him what looks like an oak table. Beautiful grain. Rich color. Sophisticated design. It costs him 2 weeks' wages, same as his grandfather paid. But when he gets it home and starts to assemble it, because of course it comes in a flat pack, he notices something. The top is actual wood, but it's thin. 1/4-inch veneer over particle board. The legs are hollow. The screws strip easily because they're drilling into compressed sawdust held together with glue. Within 5 years, the veneer is chipping. The joints are loose. The whole thing wobbles when you put your elbows on it during dinner. This man got robbed. Not at gunpoint, not by some criminal. He got robbed by the system itself. By an economy that learned how to make things look like what they used to be without actually being what they used to be. And the truly sinister part? He doesn't even know he got robbed, because everything around him is the same. All his friends have the same kind of table, the same kind of couch, the same kind of life. The fake has become so universal that it's invisible. It's just how things are now. The water the fish doesn't know it's swimming in. So what happened between that Philadelphia factory worker in 1935 and his great-grandson in 2015? What changed? How did we go from an economy that made things that lasted to an economy that makes things that look like they last? The answer is hiding in plain sight. In fact, it was announced, publicly, proudly. In 1954, a man named Brooks Stevens stood up in front of an audience of industrial designers in Minneapolis and gave a speech that would change everything. He had a term for what he was proposing. He called it planned obsolescence. The idea was simple, almost elegant in its cruelty. You design products to become obsolete, not to break down entirely, because that would be too obvious, but to become outdated, unfashionable, old. You make them last just long enough that the customer doesn't sue you, but not so long that they don't need to buy a replacement. Stevens didn't invent this concept. A guy named Bernard London had written about it 20 years earlier, during the Depression, arguing that mandatory obsolescence could jumpstart the economy, but Stevens was the one who made it respectable, who turned it into a philosophy, a design movement. He gave it a friendly face. He said it was about instilling in the buyer the desire to own something a little newer, a little better, a little sooner than is necessary. Notice the language. Not making products that break, not tricking people into buying garbage. No, he made it sound like progress, like fashion, like helping people express themselves. The corporations loved it, because Stevens had solved their biggest problem. In the 1920s and 30s, American manufacturing had gotten too good. They'd made products so durable that people stopped buying new ones. You bought a refrigerator in 1925, it was still running in 1945. You bought a washing machine, it lasted decades. This was great for consumers, terrible for business. How do you grow if people don't need your products? How do you increase profits if the thing you sold someone 20 years ago still works perfectly? Planned obsolescence was the answer. But there was a problem. Americans in the 1950s still remembered the Depression. They remembered scarcity. They valued durability. Their parents had taught them to buy quality, to invest in things that lasted. So corporations couldn't just start making junk, not obviously. They had to be subtle. They had to make it look good while making it worse. Enter the veneer. Not just wood veneer. The whole concept of veneer. Of surface without substance, of the appearance of luxury without the reality of it. This became the dominant aesthetic and manufacturing philosophy of American capitalism for the next 70 years. The beauty of veneer, from a corporate perspective, is that it allows you to compress costs while expanding margins. Take that table we talked about earlier. Solid oak costs money. It's heavy, so it's expensive to ship. It requires skilled craftsmen to work with. It takes time. But a quarter-inch slice of oak glued to particle board? That looks like solid oak in the showroom. That photographs like solid oak online, but it costs maybe 1/10 as much to produce. You can manufacture it in a factory in China with unskilled labor and automated equipment. You can ship it flat in a box. And here's the beautiful part. The truly cynical genius of it. You can charge almost as much as solid oak used to cost, because the customer doesn't know the difference, not until they get it home. Not until it's too late to return it. Not until 3 years later when it starts falling apart and they assume, well, that's just how furniture is now. This is the con at the heart of the veneer economy. Compress the cost, maintain the price, pocket the difference, and make it look so good that nobody notices until the trap has already closed. But it goes deeper than furniture, way deeper, because once you start seeing the pattern, you realize it's everywhere. It's not just about physical products anymore. It's become a philosophy that's infected every corner of our lives. Take real estate. In 1950, a developer built an apartment building. He used brick and steel, thick walls, real plaster, solid doors. Those buildings are still standing, still desirable, still commanding premium rents. Today, a developer builds what they call a luxury apartment building. The lobby, the part you see when you walk in, the part they photograph for the website. That's beautiful. Marble floors, maybe real marble, maybe porcelain tile that looks like marble, but either way it's gorgeous. Chandelier, doorman in a uniform, it screams wealth. Then you get to your apartment. The walls are drywall over metal studs. You can hear everything. Your neighbor's TV, their arguments, their bathroom habits. The floors are luxury vinyl plank. Looks like hardwood in the photos. Feels like plastic under your feet. The cabinets are particle board with a wood grain finish. The countertops are quartz, which sounds fancy, but it's actually just crushed stone mixed with resin. Everything is designed to look expensive in a photo, to command a high rent, but to cost as little as possible to build. The developer knows these apartments won't last 50 years. They don't need to. They only need to last until the building is sold to another investment group. Maybe 10 years, maybe 15. By then, it'll be someone else's problem. The veneer will be peeling, the floors will be scuffed, the cheap fixtures will be breaking. But that's fine. They'll call it vintage. They'll do a renovation. New paint, new photos, raise the rent, do it all over again. This is the fundamental trick of the veneer economy. Separate the timeline of appearance from the timeline of function. Make something look like it will last forever, but build it to last exactly as long as the warranty period, or the lease term, or the attention span of the consumer, whichever comes first. Look at your phone. 3 years old and it's sluggish. The battery dies by noon. The screen has ghost touches. Is it broken? Not exactly. It still works, but it feels old, outdated, slow. Meanwhile, the new model in the store looks so sleek, so fast, so desirable. You know, rationally, that it's going to be in the same state in 3 years. You know you're on a treadmill, but you buy it anyway, because the alternative is walking around with a phone that marks you as behind, as poor, as out of touch. This is more sophisticated than simple planned obsolescence. This is psychological obsolescence. The product doesn't break, you just feel bad using it. And that feeling, that subtle shame, is worth billions of dollars. The fashion industry figured this out decades before tech companies did. In the 1920s, the ready-to-wear clothing industry faced the same problem as appliance manufacturers. People weren't buying enough clothes. Why would they? A well-made wool coat lasted 10 years. A good pair of leather shoes lasted 5. So the industry invented fashion seasons. They created arbitrary style changes. Hemlines up, hemlines down, lapels wide, lapels narrow. None of it meant anything, but it meant your perfectly functional coat from last year looked old. Dated. Wrong. Fast forward to today, and we have fast fashion. Clothes designed not to last even a single season. Fabric so thin you can see through it. Stitching so weak it comes apart in the wash. But it looks incredible in the Instagram photo. That's all that matters. You wear it once, twice maybe. Then it falls apart or goes out of style, which in the age of TikTok trends means about 3 weeks. You throw it away, buy something new. The cycle continues. And here's what's truly dark about this. It's made us complicit in our own exploitation. We know the coat is cheap. We know it won't last, but we buy it anyway. Because buying a quality coat means spending $500. And who has that? So we spend $50 on something that'll last 1 season, and we tell ourselves we'll buy quality next time. But next time never comes, because next season we need the money for something else. And anyway, the styles have changed, so maybe it's better to buy cheap and stay current than to buy expensive and look outdated. The veneer economy has trapped us in a cycle where cheap is expensive and expensive is impossible, where quality costs so much that it's out of reach, So we buy disposable garbage and replace it constantly, spending more in the long run but never having enough money at once to break free. This is the genius of it, not just making products worse, but making them worse in a way that feels like freedom, like choice, like personal expression. You're not a victim of a system. You're a savvy shopper finding deals. You're an individual expressing your style. You're someone who values experiences over things. The system has given you the language to explain your own exploitation to yourself in positive terms. Consider the restaurant industry. In 1960, you went to a diner. You got a plate of food that could feed 2 people. Real eggs, real butter, meat that was recognizable as meat, toast thick enough to actually taste like bread, coffee that had seen the inside of a coffee bean at some point in its life. The prices were low because the ingredients were cheap. Food was abundant. Labor was cheap. Today, you go to a restaurant that's all exposed brick and Edison bulbs and reclaimed wood and vintage mirrors. The menu is on a chalkboard. The server has opinions about the wine list. You order a dish that's described as deconstructed or elevated or playful. What arrives is a small pile of foam, some microgreens, and a piece of protein the size of a deck of cards. It's arranged beautifully, photographed beautifully, tastes like nothing, costs $35. You leave hungry. You get McDonald's on the way home, but you post the photo on Instagram first because it looked amazing. And that's what matters in the veneer economy. Not whether it satisfied you, whether it looked like it would satisfy you. The entire experience economy is built on this principle. Sell the appearance of satisfaction without the reality of it. Charge premium prices for mediocre experiences that are optimized for documentation, not enjoyment. The concert where you spend the whole time watching through your phone screen, the vacation where you're so busy getting content that you forget to actually relax, the restaurant where the food is secondary to the ambiance. All veneer, all surface, all performance. And we've accepted this. We've internalized it so deeply that we don't even remember what the alternative looks like. People under 40 have never experienced an economy where things were built to last, where quality was the default, not a luxury. They've never lived in a world where you could buy something once and expect it to work for decades, so they don't know what they're missing. To them, this is just how things are. Everything is disposable. Everything is temporary. Everything is optimized for the photo, not the experience. The veneer economy has become the water we swim in. And just like the fish doesn't question the water, we don't question why everything around us feels so hollow. Why, despite living in the wealthiest country in human history, surrounded by more stuff than any previous generation, we feel so poor, so empty, so dissatisfied. There's a philosophical dimension to this that goes beyond simple consumerism. The veneer economy isn't just about products. It's a metaphor for our entire culture. We live in an age of performance, of curation, of surfaces. Social media is the ultimate veneer. Everyone's life looks amazing. Perfect relationships, perfect bodies, perfect careers, perfect vacations. But behind the screen, the reality is usually mundane at best, miserable at worst. Depression, anxiety, debt, loneliness. But we don't share that. We share the veneer. We've built an entire society on looking rich while feeling poor, on seeming successful while struggling, on appearing happy while medicating through consumption. The external presentation has become divorced from the internal reality to such an extent that we no longer know which is real. Maybe neither. Maybe both. The question then becomes, how do you escape? How do you step out of the veneer economy when it's not just an economic system but a totalizing cultural force? When opting out means being marked as weird, as poor, as somehow less than? The answer is uncomfortable. You can't escape it entirely, not unless you go live in the woods. But you can become conscious of it. You can stop playing the game voluntarily. You can choose to invest in quality when you can afford it, even if it means buying less. You can resist the urge to photograph everything, to perform your life for an audience, to mistake the appearance of wealth for actual satisfaction. You can buy the solid wood table, even if it takes you twice as long to save for it. You can buy the quality coat that costs more, but lasts 10 years. You can choose experiences based on whether you'll enjoy them, not whether they'll make good content. You can opt out of the upgrade cycle. You can repair instead of replace. You can buy used. You can recognize that the shame you feel using an older phone or wearing last season's style is manufactured, deliberate, designed to keep you spending. This is harder than it sounds, because the Veneer economy has made frugality look like poverty and restraint look like failure. To live simply, to refuse to participate in the performance, marks you as outside the acceptable boundaries of modern life. But that's the only way out. To care less about how things look and more about how they feel. To prioritize substance over surface. To build a life that satisfies you rather than one that looks satisfying to others. The irony is that this was just normal life 70 years ago. Buying quality, making things last, not replacing something until it broke, not performing your existence for strangers. But somewhere along the way, capitalism figured out that dissatisfaction is more profitable than satisfaction. That if you can make people feel poor, even when surrounded by abundance, you can keep them buying forever. The Veneer economy is the final evolution of that insight. An economic system that runs on the gap between appearance and reality, between what things look like and what they actually are. And the darkest part? It works. It works so well that we defend it. We celebrate it. We post photos of our beautiful Veneer lives and get likes and feel validated, even as the hollowness grows deeper. Even as we spend more and own less. Even as everything around us becomes cheaper and more expensive at the same time. You're living in the Veneer economy right now. You always have been if you're under 50. It's the only economy you know. Everything looks expensive, but feels cheap. Everything promises satisfaction, but delivers emptiness. Everything is designed to be replaced, including you. That's the deal. That's the system. And recognizing it doesn't free you from it, but at least you stop wondering why everything feels so wrong. At least you know you're not crazy. The splinter in your mind is real, and it's been there, deliberately placed for longer than you've been alive.